Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.
I found a kid who swings a golf club like a dream. I'd like to try to qualify him for the U.S. Amateurs.
Coming to Apple TV Plus.
What's your name?
I'm not into older guys, but I'm flattered.
A new comedy series, Stick.
I don't want to go on this trip.
Your mouth's saying one thing, but those eyes are saying something else.
From the home of Ted Lasso.
This is your shot at redemption? This is your mulligan?
Owen Wilson.
This game takes and it takes. The game's finally giving me something back.
Stick.
You know Arnold Palmer?
Iced tea, lemonade, mix it.
I'm missing a nap for this.
Streaming June 4th on Apple TV Plus.
No, Gavin, I don't think a catalog from ye old Twig and Cockle Shop is going to be a Christmas icon. Ass. The following podcast contains...
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Explicit language. Hello and welcome to the podcast that asks a simple question. When I begged you all year for a Millennium Falcon and you bought me a Century Eagle knockoff for Christmas because it was just as good, what the hell were you thinking, Mom and Dad? I'm your host, Dave Bledsoe, and this is episode number 474, the Santa Went to Sears edition of the show, where we talk about the glory that was the annual Sears Christmas Wishbook. Stay tuned. What the Hell You Thinking podcast is brought to you by returning sponsor, the USS Flag, the toy that helped you learn that you were poor. Like many kids growing up during the 80s, you probably weren't paying attention to family financials. But thanks to the USS Flag G.I. Joe playset, you learned the hard way that your parents worked two jobs for a reason. Retailing at $109.99 in 1980, $421 in today's money, the USS Flag made clear for the first time why you were wearing your older brother's hand-me-down pants and always had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch at school. You saw the commercials, but only after that one friend with an in-ground pool whose dad drove the nice car spread that 7-foot-long motherfucker out in their basement playroom did it finally sink in exactly how poor your family really was. The USS Flag G.I. Joe action playset from Hasbro, demonstrating wealth inequality for Generation X. Now, go play with your green plastic army men, you filthy little peasant.
It's here, the new Sears Wishbook, and oh, what a wishbook! Over 600 pages, some with gifts your family's never gotten before. Gifts they'll really be glad to open. Gifts that are fun and lovable, and unexpected.
Oh, what a wishbook.
There are gifts that Sears will monogram. How about something colorful, or warm and cozy, or tasteful? Now's the time to look in the wishbook for ideas.
I love you.
There's something for everyone on your list, including brand names and gifts that are hard to find. There are even special pages of gifts that cost just what you want to spend.
Oh, what a wishbook.
It's so easy to make wishes come true with the new Sears Wishbook.
Like I've said before,
Many, many times.
my parents always did my sister and me right at Christmas. Were there gifts that I wanted but didn't get?
You want the Millennium Falcon?
Sure. But a year or two later, I got a,
My most prized possession was my Castle Grayskull.
which was fucking awesome.
How old were you?
Let's just say I wasn't technically an adult at the time, and let's leave it at that. But not every gift was a massive money siphon based on a thinly veiled Saturday morning cartoon commercial. There were plenty of smaller yet equally cool toys. Being a little sci-fi nerd, one of my favorite Christmas gift memories was unwrapping a Space 1999 stun gun. Disco Space Theme. Oh yeah, Disco Space Theme. Let it go. Yeah. Oh yeah. God, I love Space 1999. But the stun gun was really basically resembled a staple gun with lights in the front. It's perfect for playground laser battles. And of course, I had the Mego Star Trek figures and the Bridge play set. I had the original full-size G.I. Joe action figures, not the inferior small ones that the later years had, and so many little green army men. God, one of my favorite Christmas toys was the Mark's Guns of Navarone playset. This was this 3-foot-tall plastic mountain with hundreds of army men, along with guns, boats, tanks, jeeps, all based on a movie that came out like 10 years before I was born.
Carl Foreman's The Guns of Navarone.
I love that one so much, I bought an incomplete set off eBay just a few years ago.
Oh my God, you are such a fucking child.
Yeah, but I'm a child with a fucking paycheck, so back off. One of these days I'll get around to completing it, but all I need is something like a house where I could set it up. Sadly, I'll never be able to afford that house because, well, I spent all my money buying things like a Guns of Navarone playset on eBay. Now, not everything was toys. I received my first firearms under the Christmas tree.
Well, how old were you again?
Still not technically an adult, but it was a different time. Kids back then didn't shoot up schools, largely because we had Castle Grayskulls, Space 1999 stun guns, and Guns of Navarone playsets. All of these toys were the result of a long, intensive process of selection, whining, bargaining, begging, more whining, and some light emotional extortion that was at the heart of the Christmas industrial complex in the 1970s and 80s. Every parent and every child understood that's just how the system worked.
It was Santa Claus.
Shit, no, it wasn't Santa Claus. It was a large, glossy print magazine that came in the mail in late October, and it's how kids and parents figured out who was going to get what for Christmas, based on how much money the parents made and whether or not the kids had been little shits that year. It came from the Sears Corporation, and that brings me to this week's topic, the annual Sears Christmas Wishbook. The book that kickstarted Christmas. In the days before Amazon, the Sears catalog was how America shopped, and the Wishbook was the biggest, best catalog of the entire year. Can't tell you the story of the Wishbook without telling you the full story of
The goddamn Sears catalog.
Humans have been buying and selling since not long after we stopped hunting and gathering. Beginning with barter and moving to the first currencies, if one person had something and another person wanted it, there were basically two options. You could,
Should we kill him and take it?
which was terribly popular, but as we grew more civilized, it was decided it would be easier and less bloody to just purchase what we wanted or needed. Eventually, merchants began gathering together to sell their goods for convenience as well as security from the practitioners of those old ways where they just killed you and took it. This led to bazaars, which morphed into shops, usually specialized shops based on crafts or products. When the Industrial Revolution came along and changed how things were made, the number of products available for purchase increased, and merchants began to stock wider selections in their store, leading to the first mercantiles or general stores. They offered everything from food to hardware to cloth and even weapons. The local general store became a center of culture and commerce in American life that spread westward along with the settlers. We stole the natives' land, killed their people, but in return, we gave them
great place to shop for birthday presents.
And as the country grew, the people just often needed more than what they could get at the general store in town. They needed specialty items, and with the railroads fully in place and the post office connecting every corner of the nation, the mail order industry was born. In 1892, a cat by the name of Richard Warren Sears teamed up with a dude named Alva Curtis Roebuck and opened a mail order catalog business. From Smithsonian Magazine, quote, "The company was founded as a modest mail order retailer of watches in the 1880s by Sears and Roebuck, and along with Julius Rosenwald, the Chicago clothing merchant, who became a partner in the firm in 1895 and directed its rapid growth, expanding into new products in an ever broader territory. Mail order firms like Sears were able to penetrate the underserved rural areas by leaning on new infrastructure, such as the railroads that linked far-flung regions of the country. Government regulations also aided the company's growth, with the Rural Free Delivery Act of 1896 underwriting its distribution chain by expanding mail routes in rural areas," unquote. Though the company expanded into physical stores in 1925, it retained its mail order business for a long time. The Sears and Roebuck catalog was a one-stop shop for Americans, particularly rural Americans. From its pages, one could order pretty much anything the heart desired, be it children's toys, tools, firearms, household appliances, automobiles, or even an entire house.
Well, it's got to be a tiny house.
No, not tiny houses or sheds, but full-time, sometimes multi-story homes in a box that arrived on a train, and the buyers built them on the spot of their choosing. The last one was sold in 1942, and many of them still stand today. The Sears catalog was a ubiquitous piece of American culture that provided an essential service to the people of this country, first as a source of necessary physical items, and then in a dual function in the outhouse where you could both read the catalog and then
You can wipe your asses with it.
when you were done. It's not an exaggeration to say that the Sears catalog helped build the United States of America. The first Sears Christmas catalog dropped ironically enough in the worst days of the Great Depression in 1933. It wasn't a wish book. It wasn't even a full catalog. It was just a supplement to the Sears semi-annual catalog that they called the Big Book. According to GoodHousekeeping.com, quote, the inaugural Sears Christmas book, which highlighted Miss Pigtails dolls, 5-pound chocolate boxes, and live singing canaries, was just 78 pages, unquote. The Christmas supplement would regularly come out in late September or early October before it officially became the Wish Book in 1968. The catalog that year in 68 was 605 pages, and 225 pages of that were devoted entirely to toys.
Get those wonderful toys.
For most of us, it was the Sears Wishbook. Let me explain what it was like for the youngs who didn't know or never experienced the glory that was the Wishbook. A few weeks before Halloween, we Gen X kids would arrive home from school and pick up the mail. This was our job since our parents probably would not be home for several more hours. Now, we kids did not generally concern ourselves over the mail, barring our birthday or other significant life event.
Weddings, parties, bar mitzvahs.
We did not get mail. But our role in collecting said mail was a solemn responsibility because God help you if a bill goes astray and doesn't get paid because you fucked up. However, in the waning weeks of October, there was something for us in the mailbox. A thick block of glossy print pages resplendent with Christmas trappings on the cover. And it was glorious. So you dumped your school books on the dining room table and you dropped the catalog down there with a satisfactory thump and then immediately opened to the toys section. Hundreds, nay, thousands of toys. Toys beyond your wildest imagination. Toys for every age, every social assigned gender, and every interest. There were so many goddamn toys that your eyes would begin to well up from sheer emotion, and also because your sibling has just flicked you in the ear really hard because you were hogging the wish book.
It's my turn!
Once you completed your first pass, and that usually took several days, it was time for analysis and strategy. You would meet with your advisory staff, your 1, 2, 3, 4. All of whom had their own list, and you would commence a meta-analysis of this year's wish book. The toys were broken up into categories based on how cool the toy was, and that was a nebulous standard that could mean different things to different social groups. What was cool to the jocks was not cool to the nerds, and definitely vice versa. The next category was newness. Was this the first year a said toy was on the market? Following this was popularity. Was this toy something everybody wanted? Or was it a niche selection? Then there was social status. Could the possession of this toy enhance our social standing both within and without our brain trust? And lastly, there was the price. Admittedly, we children were not the ones who were going to pay for the toy, but we all had a fairly good idea of our parents' pain point as far as prices went. And then there was the additional factor that came into play later in the 1980s, availability. And while I never went for the biggest fads of the time, your Cabbage Patches and what have you, my sister's brain trust did have to factor this into their equation, along with exactly how far our parents might go to fulfill their child, let's just be honest, their daughter's deepest wish for the must-have Christmas doll of 1983.
Please, 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 Daddy.
With the meta-analysis complete, we would then begin to winnow our list, which could begin with well over 100 toys, down to the maximum acceptable parental parameters. In the case of my folks, there were around a dozen toy requests. There were 2 large buys, either of which were acceptable to me, and the remaining 10, I could reasonably expect to get 6 or 8 of them in a good Christmas season, 3 to 4 in periods of economic instability such as, recession or unemployment.
It's well-planned and fiscally sound.
And keep in mind, this had to be done without the aid of modern technology. We didn't have Excel spreadsheets, and if we wanted a pitch deck, we couldn't open PowerPoint. We had to do it by cut and paste on a layout board.
Which is hardly very far ahead of stone knives and bearskins.
Not to mention, we were on a deadline, a hard deadline. We needed our list for Santa by the second week of November at the latest, because this was way before next day delivery.
Bad news is it takes 2 weeks for delivery.
2 weeks was optimistic. Back in the day, a month was not an unheard of delivery time, particularly during the Christmas rush. There's really no modern analog to the wish book. Yeah, there's still catalogs, but they're either very high-end or extremely low-end merchandise. And not having kids, I cannot begin to imagine how kids go about making their Santa lists using iPads and Amazon, because there's no magic in that. It was in 1993 that the magic began to die. And Sears had discontinued their annual Big Book, though the Wish Book still continued. Catalog sales dropped precipitously, and Sears had long since transitioned to brick-and-mortar retail chains, with Sears stores anchoring malls from shore to shore. Customers were now accustomed to going into the store to browse for their items, even though the physical store could never contain the multitude of options in a catalog, unless, of course, you were shopping at the Sears in a TARDIS.
It's bigger on the inside than the outside.
The internet was just beginning to creep into our consciousness in 93, and while online shopping had been around since 1982, sites like CompuServe, Prodigy, which was actually owned by Sears, and America Online were beginning to tease what true online shopping might be like, and 2 years later, online shopping was effectively born. Jeff Bezos launched Amazon in 95, and that was the absolute death knell for the Sears catalog and for Sears in general, but it would be a long, slow death. The 95 Wish Book was just a fraction of what it was 10 years earlier. It was a scant 210 pages compared to the 600 plus of 1985. And even at the time, people were beginning to notice this icon of Americana just wasn't what it used to be. This is from a 1993 article in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Quote, "It's not so much the catalog itself that we'll miss. Its quaint ranking system, good, better, best, its craftsman tools, the glimpse it once gave of the mysterious garment that in this age of Madonna have become ho-hum outerwear. Sears' whale of a wish book had seemed a museum piece already, nibbled into obsolescence by 1,000 many competitors, and frankly, it's hard to mourn its loss when every day in the mailbox it's filled with his offspring, Harkin garden tools, an exercise bike, Victoria's mini secrets, and the late Leon Bean's rubber-bottom boots. No, we'll miss what it represented. The shared cultural idiom, the big tent, the relentless faith in mass middle-class market. Who are we now, after all? Writer Barbara Ehrenreich fears two cultures emerging, David's Cookies versus Mr. Donuts, as the middle of the retail industry shrinks and the middle class is siphoned off towards an affluent minority and a horde of the desperately poor. Perhaps new images and icons, Bart Simpson, Roseanne, anyone, will be enough to bind us together, or a new civic philosophy, more community-minded than the I've got mine ethos of the 1980s, but it'll be hard to match the universality of the Sears Wish Book. For generations, it made the American dream tangible, or at least visible, and somehow brought together the niche, the segment, and boutique instead of dividing them apart. That, in this time of balkanized politics, single-issue sniping, and wedge issues, is what we'll miss the most, unquote. That was written in 1993, y'all. And y'all know it just got fucking worse. By 2005, the Wish Book was gone entirely. And frankly, there wasn't much to miss at the end. The Walmartization of retail had devastated Sears in the late 90s, and by the mid-aughts, Amazon was eating the weakest of the herd at a frightful rate, and Sears was now over a century old, and it was easy prey. The nostalgic charm of the catalog held no attraction to the modern shopper, and the malls that once formed the social nucleus of the late 20th century American town were heaving like a decrepit wildebeest ran down by a pride of lions.
You use your tongue prettier than a $20 whore.
Within a decade, the malls, too, would be gone. See episode number 252 for all you need to know about that.
That's a plug.
The fading retailer tried to reignite the old passion for analog shopping with a print catalog in 2007. At a measly 200 pages, it didn't accomplish much, and digital versions never matched the utility and convenience of Amazon, and the brick-and-mortar stores couldn't compete with Walmart and Target for prices or convenience. For some reason, Kmart, a brand that was already a distant third compared to Walmart and Target, decided that buying Sears was the solution to their financial problems, including their very own bankruptcy.
Right. How'd that all work out?
Well, after filing for bankruptcy again in 2018, of the over 500 Sears stores alone open at the time, there would be 9 left in the world, and there's not one Kmart remaining. So, not great. And because there were so many wish books printed, finding old copies of them is relatively easy. There's a massive online archive of them, and physical copies are sold on eBay and other auction sites to collectors, which I can say to catalog collectors,
you are not nerdy.
I mean, you totally are, but you do you. And while it may sound silly to modern listeners, with your hip AI-generated podcast and same-day delivery, leafing through a wish book today is the closest thing we have to a working time machine. In the pages of the wish book are the hopes and the dreams and the desires of an entire generation, a largely forgotten generation, my generation. But it's also more than that. It's a statement on who we were as a people at the time.
I rather doubt that.
I found this written by author Rolf Potts during my research for this episode, and his entire essay is a great read, and it's linked in the show notes, but it was a summation that I felt captured my own feeling about all this. Quote, Taken as literature, the Wishbook was more than a fictive vessel for childhood reverie. It was in practice a democratizing document that unmoored its readers from the constraints of place and tradition, united them in an optimistic narrative of cosmopolitan middle-class aspiration. This is, I think, an underappreciated aspect of American commercial literature, with its mail-order objectivity regarding all potential customers as equal by way of their purchasing power. One detail of the 1976 Wishbook that caught my attention upon rereading it was the matter-of-fact inclusion of black faces among its fashion models. Of the catalog's 269 clothing-oriented pages, African Americans appeared on 30 of them, which at 11.1% was the exact demographic sample size of African Americans nationwide in the mid-1970s. That can't have been an accident, any more than it was an accident when the 1904 catalog's hair care section added wigs for African Americans in tandem with the emergence of the black bourgeoisie. The Wishbook was never a prescription for unfettered accumulation so much as it was a Whitman-esque index of possibility. As often as not, the childish yearning for Christmas morning was more enchanting than the occasion itself, and the act of unwrapping that soon-to-be dated Super Pong 4 console carried as much emotional resonance as the subsequent hours spent using it. In learning to appreciate this line between promise and actuality, the young Wishbook reader was sharpening his instincts for life in general. Unquote. Yes, the Sears Wishbook was an integral component in the machine that was American capitalism. It existed solely as a means of transferring wealth from many poor Americans to a tiny few rich ones, but at least it was an honest mechanism of doing so. There were no algorithms to guide our childish eyes to the toys whose makers had paid a premium to have them put in front of us first and most often. And while television and later movies would become the primary driver of what went into the Wishbook, especially after Star Wars, the catalog itself was simply an archive of possibilities for kids to leaf through and dream, and occasionally plot, conspire, and inveigle our way into possession of these few dreams. It was something for everyone. And yeah, it skewed white and middle class. It didn't exclude anyone else at the same time. The Wishbook was there when you were just old enough to understand the concept of begging your parents for toys through the halcyon years of your middle childhood and into the natural greediness of your teens when the toys weren't toys anymore, but electronic gadgets that beat word or blasted rock music at a volume that made your parents regret ever buying it for you and maybe ever having you. The Wishbook was a roadmap to adulthood for Generation X. And yes, I do mean adulthood, because the Sears Wishbook even taught us about sex.
I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear it.
Because nestled in the pages of the tools, toys, washing machines, and apparel was a small but important section of women's delicates, women's lingerie. And eventually, long after the holidays had passed and the Wishbook had been delegated to the toilet tank for the casual perusal by the unprepared, a young man might find himself idly paging through the catalog and come upon this discreet but influential section of the book.
Please stop.
While there was never anything explicit, it was, after all, lingerie in a Sears catalog. But for a young man without ready access to more, shall we say, lurid imagery.
Please stop, please stop, please stop!
The mere presence of clinging garments, all very tasteful, all very demure, with their plunging necklines cut high on the thigh, clinging to the soft, ripe forms of airbrush models. Well, that young man might experience certain, shall we say, stirrings.
Dave! Dave, no!
Well, I can sense that I'm making some of you uncomfortable, so let's just say that,
I used to jerk off to a Sears catalog.
And so did every other dude in Generation X.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
That is it for the show this week, Pod friends. This is the last new show before Christmas, and that means three things. First thing, shipping window is closed for merch. I mean, you could definitely order, and you should, but it just won't be there in time to go under the tree. And second, I've let the staff monkeys go home for the show after the show wraps, leaving Gavin, who's on his way back to Mariol to spend Christmas with his mom and da, but he damn well be back here by December 27th, or I'm going to fire his ass. And third, I'm starting my Christmas bender. 2 weeks where I'm not sober for a single goddamn day. Best time of the year for me. Now, speaking of being fired, well, they can't fire me. I run the place. Fire off a rating and review wherever you get your podcast, and fire us off $1 at patreon.com/whatthehellpodcast. We're going to use that money to pay for my Christmas bender, and also use the website. Don't use the iOS app. That saves both of us money. And then do all the things Jeremy tells you to do in the closing credits. Otherwise, he's not going to be giving our figgy pudding Christmas bonus this year. I don't even know what the fuck figgy pudding is and why he gives it as a bonus, but it's the thought that counts. And so, for me, Dave, for those who shop by mail for all their family clothes, Bledsoe, producer,
in the fall and winter catalog, more than fashion is exposed,
Gavin, and all the fictional catalog jerkers on the show, we want to say, look and see, you'll agree, he's got personality, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks for our year in review show. Happy holiday, merry fuck, I don't give a shit, just try not to kill him.
I see this advertisement that makes me come unglued. The pictures got me out of sorts 'cause I don't understand. Are they advertising boxer shorts?
What the Hell Were You Thinking stars Dave Bledsoe and features Gavin St. James and several fictional minions. The show is produced by Kimberly Steele and a part of the Seltzer Kings podcast network. You can find more information on the show on their website, whatthehellpodcast.com, or on Twitter at @thehell_podcast, or on Facebook as What the Hell Podcast. Thanks for listening.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.
Every year this happens.
Seltzer Kings podcasts.